Welcome to the world of risk. Risk is something which we think is something which we can see and quantify and manage that and become great investors. Funnily, risk is something which we all manage very well at the rational, at the local level, as an individual and as a family. That is why the world population has gone up. So earlier there was a risk that people would, that many children would die. So infant mortality was high. So people had 8-9 children, lost 3 of them, 4 of them. I'm talking of say 125 years ago in India, and today it could be still true in some parts of India, but not generally true. Therefore, they produce more children. 2-3 children, 6 children were produced, 3 died, and 3 lived. And so, if you see, if anything, the average age has only gone up. So even though we find very stupid ways of killing ourselves, like overeating or keeping a gun at home which somebody uses accidentally. In US, you could go to a theater and not come back because somebody carried a gun and shot you. In Bombay, you could you could cross a track and get killed, and you could be walking on the road and get killed by a car, and anything can happen, right? So we are not great at managing risk in the sense that we will always get it right perfectly, but at the individual rational level, we have done better than what we could have done, and therefore our world population has gone up. So, and if you think that is all this has happened simply because we sat down in a piece of paper and we used all our standard deviation, variance, we calculated all that, and therefore we conquered risk, is absolutely stupid. It can be only true in some colleges which have been funded very well, who will sit and say man is a rational animal. Man is not a rational animal, he is only a rationalizing animal, and he will justify all his actions. In fact, I think women would make better investors than men would, simply because maybe they rationalize less and they're more conservative in their investing. Sorry, I'm digressing, but to think of risk in economics and investing is a little more difficult than risk in real life. I mean, I can imagine people understanding the physical risk to themselves, right? Nobody, I've not heard of anybody who goes on a forest safari who gets down from the jeep to look at the tiger more closely. You're not supposed to, but I don't think the forest guard who is there with you or the guide who is there with you needs to tell you that don't go near the tiger. That much of risk we understand, but we don't understand risk when it comes to investing. So when market commentators come and say only by increasing the risk you can get more returns, honestly, I don't think they understand what they are saying. They just keep saying some things like which sound very right. Oh, greater the risk, greater the reward. Fantastic. You'll never be able to prove this. You only know that you got greater reward by taking greater risk, but every time you take greater risk, it does not mean you will get great rewards, right? You could be completely wrong with your decision based on risk, and you could be completely right in a place where you did not see the risk and it did not exist. In some places you did not see the risk, but the risk existed, right? You need to understand the difference between the to think that all of us are rational or we will do every act rationally is completely wrong, because if that was true, we would not be consuming so much of sugar, we would not be consuming so much of cola, we won't be consuming tobacco, we may be doing many things right, we may be getting our exercise right. Right now it's not happening. So it's not to say that we are very rational in our thinking, but to prove to ourselves that we are more irrational than rational. So with this, armed with all this, you need to look at your portfolio and you need to understand that it is emotion which is very important. It is not just greed that is there, it is also envy. And to look at him and say, oh, he actually failed in class 8, how is he so successful, or something like that, right? We can't think that a person who is academically less than us or was less than us is now gone further ahead in life or whatever financial success, if you consider that as life. We can't understand. So then we have to rationalize and say, oh, he was very lucky, his father gave him this, his father gave him a house, his father gave him a portfolio. Or I mean, it could be as simple as if you ask your servant is going to say, oh, your children are so lucky, they are getting English medium education, and that is something which you got, which your father got. Maybe in your family you got 300 years of education or 200 years of education, or maybe more than that, right? So then we rationalize saying, oh, this is what must have happened and things like that. So stop rationalizing first, then it's more easy to understand risk after we stop rationalizing. Our stand on anything depends on what we know or what we understand about the subject and what is the impact. For example, the favorite example which most of us like to give is nuclear power. When you see nuclear power, you can think of Chernobyl or something. I mean, if you're younger, you may only read about it, but people like me remember seeing those stark pictures. So we've seen the nuclear Hiroshima, Nagasaki. So it's so huge in our minds that we think nuclear power is dangerous. We don't mind the pollution created by coal over long periods of time, especially, but we then tell ourselves we are not miners, we are not going to die in a mine, so what is the risk of coal? So therefore we keep nuclear power out, though mathematically I will be able to prove that nuclear power is better than coal power, but I don't think we have reached that stage, and therefore we have kept nuclear power out. And if you think nuclear power is bad, then you will look at it as risky. If you think nuclear power is good, you will say, oh, but it gives you a clean atmosphere. We decide our final reaction based on our emotional reaction. So our emotional reaction is, I don't like nuclear power, so then it looks risky. So it is to say that because of risk, I'm taking the decision is wrong. Because of the emotion, I'm looking at it as risky and non-risky. And this is the problem in while judging investments. Once we decide that it is risky, then or once we emotionally decide that we don't want to invest, we then start inventing risks which may or may not be there. First time when you're faced with a problem which is for the you've never seen this problem, you're emotionally going into that flight or fright mode, right? You'll say, okay, now let me just climb up a tree. You've seen a new animal, you don't know what it will do, you will climb up a tree. That is exactly what we do. And after doing that, we rationalize saying, I didn't know whether it was a herbivorous or a carnivorous, and therefore I climbed a tree. But then you again rationalize by saying, oh, but better safe than sorry. Now this is completely rational and perfect when you are living in the jungle, and completely idiotic and stupid when you're managing your investments. If you think the market is going to go down and you should sell by all means, but it does not mean you have to sell all your equity. You can sell partly and be right or be wrong. Be aware that you can be right by a percentage, right? Be aware that you can be wrong by a percentage. You are never precisely right or precisely wrong. In fact, when you think you are precise, that itself means you are wrong, right? Actually, talking to politicians is very useful because I think they understand risk far better than the babus. Babus have got job guarantee. They can make irrational, stupid mistakes and get away with it for the rest of their lives. Whereas the politician knows that if he makes a mistake, he'll get thrown out in 5 years or 4 years, whatever is left of his term. His bosses in Delhi could take a different view, so he has to tread that fine line between what is right, what his voters perceive as right, what they think is rationally right. I have to take a decision which looks right rather than being right, and I have to navigate through. I also have to achieve some goals. I may have perhaps one of my goals could be to make money. I'm not even getting into that area, and to be able to precisely handle all this. So when you see a politician winning election after election, like somebody like a Yogi who has stood for so many elections and almost always won it, it is amazing how well they perceive risk. They know exactly what to do, exactly how to create an image, and exactly what to tell. Now that is fine. Individually they can manage, but it does not mean they can manage for a whole party, because sitting in one place they cannot really know what is happening all over the place. So local power is necessary. Individually each guy may be capable of taking those decisions. Collectively taking those decisions is tough. So similarly, you can, if you are known, if there is a share which is known to you, you know that Nestle has done well, Maggi has done well, Nescafe has done well, blah blah blah. Therefore you are saying, oh, therefore I'm willing to give a higher PE. You're not judging it unemotionally. The PE is pure emotion, right? So understand all your problems, understand all your limitations, and then think like how a politician thinks. I have to do well, my country has to do well, my party has to do well. In this you have to choose what in every decision you cannot put yourself first, in every decision you won't put the country first, in every decision you can't put the party first. So somebody like Vajpayee, who would looked at far better view than a person who is perhaps not so competent to look at risk. So somebody who understands all this can put together much better than a person who is very confident and precisely arrogantly wrong, right? So somebody like a Chidambaram finds it far more difficult to put something like this together. Perhaps humility could help him. We have spoken about humility in other places, not so much about rationality, but yes. So all those things are necessary. There is no single lesson for an individual investor in all this. Understand all these biases, action bias, humility, need for humility, inability to understand risk, all this put together, very imprecise what I have spoken over the last 3-4 videos, but you understand this is how the world is. I cannot come and tell you, okay, buy Prism Cement at 115, it will go to 145 in 3 months time. If it doesn't go, then you have to have a stop loss. That's all fantastic. I may sound great, but I may be completely wrong. Knowing that I may be completely wrong is one of my biggest strengths in investing, and I think you should make it your strength too. Thank you.